Now you're on a new record label, Bravewords Records. When I say new record label, I'm talking this label basically emerged recently,
Yeah.
and that experience seems to be looking very good. The way that they handle things, and what attracted you to want to put this album out through that record label?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, as Gene Simmons once told me, uh, to be a musician, you also have to be a fan of music.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a fan of heavy metal. I'm a fan of music. I'm a fan of rock. And I read metal magazines and I collect records and books, the whole nine yards, posters. So how that relates to Brave Words is that they had a really killer magazine, which they still do.
Yeah.
And I used to buy the magazine at Barnes and Noble and at Borders Books. I don't know if you remember Borders, but
Oh
they
yeah,
were,
I remember.
yeah, it was like 3, 4 years ago they went out of business. But so when I heard the name Brave Words and that they were doing a record label, it's like it was a no-brainer. I knew it was going to be a great label because the magazine was great and
Yep.
the people connected to it also, were known to me, people like Tim Henderson and so on. So it was really a good fit, and I'm honored that they thought enough of me, to sign me. So it really is a nice feeling.
Yeah, I was actually, it's funny when that record label was announced. I was actually shocked they didn't do anything like that earlier, like years ago. Just
Right.
because I remember buying them. We had Borders here, Borders Books. It had HMV Music Store. Probably the HMV probably stocked it the most because I think I liked it. I don't remember if it's a Canadian company or not, but
Mhm.
they HMV here. You had a music store in a mall. That's I used to go up there,
Right.
and I used to tell them you need to set aside a copy of this. But I think about that record label because when they were, basically building this magazine, they did it in the worst time for heavy metal music, especially in North America. So it was like to make it what it became
Right.
during the worst time in North America, because Canada, metal scene wasn't any better than it was here.
Yeah.
It was pretty. It's pretty amazing when you think about that. So then you think about it now, years later, because print magazines just don't. They're not. The demand for it really isn't there like it was in the past because I was part of two of them.
Right.
The thing is that they still maintained, that name, that brand, as you might want to say, is probably the best way to put it. And they built that during the worst time for this music, and that's something that has always struck me as great. So if they can do it during the worst time for this kind of music, just imagine what they could do now, right? And so,
Right. Exactly. It's like putting out a disco song now. It's a little late. It happened in the 70s.
yep,
Metal never dies, though, which is a good thing.
yeah,
But the phenomena of reading definitely has suffered. People really are not into reading physical products anymore like they used to be,
yeah,
which I think is a shame. I collect books. I have like tons of rock and roll books and CDs and DVDs. I like the concept of having something that you can hold in your hand, the
yeah,
physical manifestation of whatever it is. I don't like everything being controlled on a cloud because I feel when you give up that power to someone else, you're giving up a lot of power. Uh, for instance, Netflix. Netflix basically chooses the movies that they want to air.
hmm,
Now, there's a lot of really great movies that don't fit their political narrative or their
sure,
social narrative, or they think maybe, oh, this is politically incorrect, so we can't show this movie. And those are some of the best movies. And so what does a person do? Well, DVDs are so cheap now. People literally give them away. Just get all the DVDs that you like and have them. And one day, if a dictator comes to power and shuts off the stream, you can still watch whatever you want to watch.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
same,
Blu-rays have even dropped in price too, if you really think
yeah,
about it.
same thing, with books as well. I mean, books get out of print, so on and so forth. So I'm really happy to have something to do with this incredible thing that I love and that I relate to, which is the written word. And Bravewords champions the written word. So I
Yeah.
got I got to say, yeah.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of the streaming thing's kind of convenient from the standpoint of, if we go on to a certain, let's say a certain streaming service, and there's,
Right.
let's say Paramount, it's always going to have shows that because they own the rights to them. It's always going to have those shows on there. But I get where you're coming from. I'm the same way with music. I mean, and there's always, if you watch Netflix, I'm just going to go with your example.
Yeah.
If I go, let's say they have a movie on there, it could be anything, right? And Netflix, Paramount Plus, any of those services. But if I go watch the Blu-ray or the 4K version of it, even though it's in 4K resolution, the streaming's still slightly lower quality, right? So
Oh,
when you move it over to music, in you collect, you get the actual medium. Let's say you get a CD or get vinyl or whatever. The listening experience is definitely a lot different than listening to something streaming that's compressed, and then of course you're listening to it through AirPods as opposed to when you put it on a record player through a tube preamp to a really nice set of speakers and an amplifier. So it's definitely different. It has changed culturally, but you still have that niche thing going on. And
yeah. No, and I appreciate that there's been a cultural shift in America and throughout the whole world. Uh, I hope we don't lose something in that shift. Luckily, I mean, we produced this album, and I have to give special credit to Thomas Mergler, who's a very great engineer from Germany. And he was able to take our vision that me and Gene Cooper had, and he was able to refine it and make it digestible. I don't know if that's a good word for it, but that's what comes to mind. Digestible to a younger generation of people that have been brought up with the headphones and the Bluetooth and all that. So it's something that obviously I wasn't brought up with that. I
no,
mean, CD was like a big event in my life. It's like, oh my God, look at these little things. Uh, and then, but I understand, that everything today has to sound good on these platforms. And Thomas did that. He made it sound really, really powerful. Because I have listened to it, with some of my younger friends, and because I wanted to try to experience it as a 24-year-old. Well, what would a 24-year-old think of this? And they dug it. So it was
yeah.
pretty cool.
I actually have. You're gonna laugh at me. I actually found it at a garage sale. He's talking about CDs, a big event. The very first Sony CD player.
Wow,
And
nice.
the CDP 101, I actually posted it on the Facebook page. What's funny, first of all, when I bought it years ago, I bought this thing. It had to be, man, it had to be like 10 or 20 years ago. I found this thing for like $20, right? $10, whatever the guy sold it to me for. what's funny about it is it has a heat sink attached to the back, kind of just out in the open. And that thing, I'll tell you what, that thing skips. You walk even, you know how like you have the anti-skip on a record player where you set the weights so the needle doesn't move when you walk past it. This thing is like terrible. I mean, it sounds good, but they didn't quite have the technology to make sure it wouldn't skip if you walked past it. So it's just funny how you're bringing it up as a big event. I'm just laughing because I unearthed this thing out of my closet and I hooked it up just to see what it would sound like again. But yeah, it was a different medium, but things always come back full circle, I think, when it comes to music, right? In even anything. I mean, everything, printed books, printed magazines came back for a while, at least when I was involved with that. You have, vinyl. I mean, nobody saw that coming. I mean, it's not what it used to be, but compared to 25 years ago, right? Now you can't even, it's like you have a backlog. There's so many people wanting records printed.
Right, exactly. Everything is new again, and and the same thing too with music, there's only 12 notes in music. It's how you use them, but
no,
you're not going to be reinventing the wheel. What you can do though is stand on the shoulders of some great people that came before you and add your own thing to it,
Sure.
And that's what I try to do. The longer you do it, the better you get at it. It's kind of like the monkey at a typewriter. Eventually the monkey will type these great, paragraphs if the monkey keeps doing it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching. And if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. And if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.